Present are all of council, Mayor Daley Jones, Directors Upton, Schofield, Kidd, and Carney, and guests. There's one item on the agenda to be considered for suspension this evening. On first reading is 2022-15. Mayor Jones, would you like to talk about this legislation?
Thank you, Mr. President, for your consideration of suspension for Resolution 2022-15. I have here tonight to speak on this Director Upton and our city engineer as well. So if they could please speak to council on our behalf.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. President. In reviewing some documents in my office over the first month, it came to my attention that the necessary legislation to allow the city to make for an application to the Department of Financial Assistance within the state EPA for a low-interest loan for the completion of the EQ Basin project. That had not been, the legislation had not been passed. And so when that came to my attention, I spoke with the mayor, and in the interest of not delaying the EQ Basin project even further out, the mayor and myself decided that to ask council for suspension to allow us to apply for this financial assistance for this low interest loan for the EQ Basin project. And city engineer can talk more about the specifications and specifics of the project and its goals. But in a nutshell, it is something that I uncovered that had not been done, and we wanted to advance that to you all this evening.
Thank you, Director. Mr. DeFranco, would you care to add anything?
Thank you, everyone. We're in preliminary design at the moment. The goal is to complete design by fall of this year and go out to bid and hopefully start construction next year. And I'm open to questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from council? Any objections from council? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to assigning legislation. Ordinance 2022-14 will be assigned to Streets and Transportation. Resolution 2022-16 will also be in Streets and Transportation. So then moving on to scheduling committee meetings for next Tuesday, February 22nd. Councilman Lippert has a scheduled BZD meeting to discuss Smoke City Vape for Tuesday the 22nd at 7 p.m. So Councilman Kelly, would you like to schedule the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, it's probably going to be about, I'm guessing 25, 30 minutes. So probably 7.
It's 25?
Yeah, 7:25. And Mr. President, if I could just, on my meeting, if I could make sure that the Economic Development Director and Law Director is designee are present for that meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we'll begin the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting will be scheduled, if I'm understanding, at 7:25.
7:25 p.m.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone on council have anything else they wish to bring up this evening?
Mr. President?
Mr. Lippert?
Yeah, I just had a note. There was a Landmarks Committee meeting last night, which was the first of the year, and thought I would just share with council. I think you all received the agenda, but they're discussing goals for their historic preservation plan. Springvale Ballroom is being recommended for a local landmark designation, and it's going to be its 100th year next year. And then they're also working on updating 2022 National Registration nomination for the Seltzer House.
All right, thank you for that update. Anything from the administration?
No, Mr. President.
Also let the record reflect that Director Koffer is also present. So seeing nothing else, the caucus meeting of February 15, 2022 is adjourned at 7:51 p.m.
let me just, if I could just check with my parents, because I need them to look.
The council meeting of February 15th, 2022 will now please come to order. The audience is invited to join council in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard?
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Here.
Mr. Glassburn?
Here.
Ms. Heeman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Limpert?
Present.
Mr. Scarrow?
Present.
Ms. Williamson?
Here.
If there are no additions or corrections, the council meeting minutes of December 21st, 2021, the special council meeting of December 22nd, 2021, and the special council meeting of December 28th, 2021 are approved as written. The following legislation is considered for suspension of the rules this evening on first reading, Resolution 2022-15. And then moving into reports, Mayor Daley Jones, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I did want to express my disappointment to City Council this evening to start off with the way that the waste pickup was handled during the most recent snowstorm that our area suffered. As many of you know, Republic Services had opted to not pick up trash, not just in North Olmsted. We were by far not the only community where they made this decision. But they delayed our trash pickup for a week, which did cause some hardship for our residents. And having talked to Republic Services, expressed our disappointment, also concerned because this past week was our bulk pickup week. And when I did speak with them, they did indicate that they would not, because they were delaying our service for a week, that they would not limit our residents to the 6-item bulk pickup, that they would pick up all of our bulk pickup. Unfortunately, we were notified, and then Director Carney took it upon himself to drive our city himself to make sure that people's garbage was being picked up, and it was not all picked up. They had left many pieces throughout our city. But I will say that thankfully, Director Carney, he started gathering those addresses, worked with his team, and Republic Services did then come back both Friday and Saturday to make sure that our waste in our city was picked up. And so I do appreciate them doing that, but I did want council to have a full report on how that was handled, and, again, just wanted you all to be aware of what had happened with that situation. The divisions of the city had been working with our office and with the finance director to put together a budget for city council. A copy of that budget was provided to council members, and we look forward to the discussion that we will have with council when the budget is formally introduced to you in March. ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation, is requesting public comment on the 480 eastbound ramp off of Clegg Road. You can find this link, will be provided on our city website and on our city social media sites in the next couple of days. So we would encourage you to encourage your residents to let their voices be heard by those decision makers at the state level on things that actually directly impact our city and our residents. And just a reminder that City Hall will be closed this Monday, February 21st, in honor of President's Day. And Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Just a quick note, you should have all received, I hope, the copy of the contracting procedures manual that I had put together. It's a document we've been using for a period of time. We keep updating it. There's been a number of changes over the past, really past year to update it. This is the same document that you have here on council to refer to that has also been provided to the directors and division heads. It's it's a place to start. It's not necessarily the finality, because I can't write everything in that book in terms of how to manage certain situations, but it's at least, it's a very, I think, thorough way to deal with contracting procedures, donation issues, gift procedures, how things happen in City Hall when there's a contract, where it goes, what the steps are, and how they're followed. So I don't know that I know for a fact you haven't been the beneficiary of that type of a document in the past, and I wanted to get it to you so that you had the same information as far as the procedures that the administration had. And I think that we've talked to the mayor, and I have chatted that once things kind of get settled in and everybody's here, we're gonna do a little bit of educational work on some of the issues, common issues and things like that, so that we can get everybody up to speed, answer questions, just to make sure that the administration, and Carrie, it will be the same way with finance, just to make sure the administration and new members are aware of the different issues that can come up and how to handle them. So this is the first step for law to get that information to them, and then as things settle in, we're going to hopefully get down and kind of have a Q&A and make sure everybody has had all their questions answered so that things move as smoothly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Broussard.
Thank you, Director. Director of Finance, Copper, you have a report this evening.
Yes, I do, a brief report. Ditto to the mayor's budgeting issues. Ditto to the law director's contracting, and we've been working with people as they've come in to learn simple things on our software system, approving requisitions and some of the process, and the contracting manual is very helpful with that. And my staff has also put together a manual for purchasing processes for the technicalities of the software and stuff. So it's been helpful, and hopefully we'll add payroll as soon as they start approving payroll. Additionally, the year-end financial statements, the summary, cash basis, and detail were sent to council today, and we'll be discussing during the budget process comparisons for the year and then the assumptions for this year. So I thought I would wrap it all together and do it at one time. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. Before moving into council committee reports, I'd like a moment of privilege, if you'll all indulge me. On behalf of my wife, Joni, our son, Nick, our daughter, Devin, I want to thank the members of council and members of the administration who went out of their way to reach out to me following the sudden passing of our cherished daughter, Brenna. A special thank you to Mayor Daley Jones, Director Kopfer, council members Williamson, Glassburn, Kelly, Scarl, and Gilchrist for braving long lines at Brenna's visitation service while simultaneously dealing with the challenges of Winter Storm Landon. And I apologize if I've omitted anyone. The outpouring of support from the community has been nothing short of amazing, and it reminds my wife and I why we love North Olmsted, so thank you. So at this time, I'd like to ask you to please join me in a moment of silent remembrance for Brenna. Thank you again. So moving into council committee reports, Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not, thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Glassburn, Chairman of the Finance Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee met on February 8th at 7:02 p.m. Present were committee members Glassburn, Limpert, Williamson, as well as council members Scarl, Kelly, Heeman, Gilchrist, the mayor, the economic development director, and the HR director. The subject was 2022-13, a request for qualifications for a strategic development plan for North Olmsted. Director Upton presented the request, which would be to update our economic development plan from 2015 would give us new tools and information regarding benchmarking, business retention, and expansion. The estimated cost could be as much as $50,000 or $75,000. We're still looking at how we're going to pay for it in the budget. There was a question from council as to if we could see an example of this report or this product as to how, so we could get an idea of what this might look like. There was general consensus around the plan. However, we did move in committee to remove the immediate Board of Control authorization, which was approved, that amendment 3-0, and was recommended by all of the Finance Committee 3-0, and the meeting closed at 7:39 p.m. So I believe at this time I will move to amend 2022-13 to remove the Board of Control authorization and ask for a second.
Second.
A motion to amend Resolution 2022-13 made by Councilman Glassburn and seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Motion to amend Resolution 2022-13 passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Scarl, Chairman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. So moving into audience participation, thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium. State your name and complete address for the clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and then proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes.
Good evening. Okay. Bear with me because Jeff Sturgeon, 3092 West 231. Sorry, I should know better. And bear with me, I wrote some stuff down, but I forgot my reading glasses. Of all damn.
Would you like to borrow mine?
Oh, you got some? Question about the ODOT and Clegg Road, where the county's asking for recommendations. At this time, do you think that, is anybody from the city, is there going to be any recommendations from the city with that, do you know? I didn't get a chance to look at that. I guess they had a meeting on Monday. I was working, didn't see it, and then by the time I found out about it, and I was just wondering if anybody from the administration or city has any recommendations.
Please go ahead, Mayor.
Mr. President, thank you. Mr. Sturgeon, yes, absolutely. We have our Economic Development Director, our Public Service Director, our City Engineer. We're all going to be communicating directly with ODOT at every step of the way. So your city administration will be represented for sure, but what they're asking for right now is sort of what the public thinks, as to what this, what the interchange is, how people, how to make it safer, and that type of thing. So that's why they're looking for public comment right now.
Okay. The one thing I would like to make sure that they do, or if they're capable of, is keeping the no right turn on red from Brook Park. The people that live on Clegg Road, they need a break where they can try to get out of their driveways. And if they lose that no right turn on red, I think that's going to go back the way it was prior to them putting that in there. You don't really have a break to get out of a driveway if you're trying to back out. The next thing I have, son of a gun. This is stupid. I can't read.
Playing trombone there?
Okay. The ordinance regarding my street, West 231, that's going into first reading for tonight. Number one is, did we get the grant from the county for that? No?
Mr. President, thank you. Mr. Surgeon, we've not been notified yet, so we did apply for that grant, but we've not been notified yet if we've received it.
Okay. And I see that, you're going to go out for bids for that project.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that they can possibly bid that for, if we go maybe a little bit wider on the parking side or of that street than what it is currently now? Maybe do a separate bid for that, or keep it, bid it the way it is, and maybe, I know it was mentioned a few meetings ago that possibly widening it, because the parking on there has been an issue for quite some time. And just thought maybe if they could widen it maybe a little bit on one side or a little bit on both sides, just to make it a little bit wider might be some help. But I don't know if they bid on that, how do they know what to bid?
Sure.
So.
Mr. President, I think that, Director, if you would like to address Mr. Surgeon's concerns, please go ahead.
Does this count towards my 5 minutes?
No, well, I'm not in charge anymore of the 5 minutes, am I?
You're asking the wrong person, Jeff.
Mr.
Should it come to that, Mr. Sturgeon, we'll make a motion to extend your time.
So our city engineer, Pete, is here as well. We have not fully designed the project, and so when we go out to bid, there is a process by which you can add alternates, where they can give you a price, and if bids come in under a certain threshold, you can add it. I don't know, Pete, if the additional space for parking is a consideration under the current design or being contemplated under the current design. He's our technical expert with respect to designing the streets.
So thank you, Mr. Sturgeon, and thank you, council. Just a little background on this grant. Typically, these grants need to be completed by the end of December. This year, the county shortened the time frame by 3 months, so we have to have all of our reimbursements in by the end of September, which means we would have to complete construction by the end of August, so that the contractors can get all the material tickets, submit invoices that we could then resubmit or submit to the county for reimbursement. That severely limits what we can do on this project. That's why we're coming to you today to get the legislation started, the 3 readings, which would then allow us to go out to bid and give us any chance of resurfacing the project this year to meet their time frame. That limits, any major reconstruction to the roadway that we'd be able to do this year. There's other factors involved. Most of West 231st is a 50-foot right-of-way, so there's not a whole lot of room to do much. There's hydrants and utility poles that may need to be moved. Obviously, drive aprons would need to be modified, and all of that adds time to a construction project. So at this time, we're just planning to resurface what's already out there.
Thank you very much. Just to let you know, the hydrants and telephone poles are not on the parking side of 231, okay? So nothing of that. And I'm just asking maybe if they could move it over like a foot. There's currently a shoulder going down there that's gravel and stuff there now. That's not affecting anybody's apron or anything. So if they could just take where that shoulder that they put in to resolve a problem a long time ago regarding the parking. I'm going to go real fast. I also wanted to say, I think that your other ordinance that you're doing is a very good thing, where you can give the mayor the approval to put a snow ban into effect. okay? I do, however, feel the parking ordinance in another matter should also be discussed and changed at a later date in the future. In this ordinance that I'm talking about, I've mentioned before, is that if a street, the way our ordinance is written, if a street has no curb, to park out on the street, all 4 tires have to be 100% on the tree line and not on the street. And I think that nobody parks like that, and I think that that should be addressed. It was something that was written many years ago. Nobody parks 100% on the tree line anywhere in this city that I know of. And I believe that's everything I have. Thank you very much for the extra time if I took it.
Mr. President, this way. Thank you.
Yes, Director
No,
Burrow.
and it's another issue, since you mentioned the traffic on Clegg Road and the no right turn, and we're looking at an entrance ramp onto 480. I would be curious, and it's an issue that I've wondered about for quite some time, if we can get an answer from ODOT about Fairview Park restricting one-way traffic on the 227 overpass, because it forces the traffic to come down Clegg Road versus hanging a left onto Clegg, going around and then going back over the bridge into Fairview Park. It's one way only. I think the bridge was built with capacity to withstand two-direction traffic, but it only allows traffic to flow south. So people going to get off the highway, normally they could turn left at the exit ramp, go down around, go down to Brook Park, and then come back up and shoot into Fairview Park. You can't. And I don't know that I ever fully understood the history of that. I don't know if it's always been that way. I don't expect you, as City Engineer DeFranco, to have that answer as we sit here. But if ODOT's in the neighborhood and they're looking at traffic control and how to deal with getting on the highway, maybe they could look at how to get off the highway and where to go once they get off. Because I'm not sure of the history of that. But it certainly is something that we could perhaps consider taking a look at if ODOT's hanging around the neighborhood. So just an observation.
It's an excellent, and I can tell you that as far as I know, that bridge where they built that was always a one-way like that. And when I can tell you that when they did do the Clegg Road widening down that area, they shut down Macbeth and Esther so people from Fairview couldn't come from Clegg to get into it. They barricaded it, okay? That forced everybody from Fairview to go around Brook Park. I mean, if Fairview wants to play hardball, I've always thought, block them off right there. Don't come down our street, go around.
Mr. President?
All right, thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilman Limpert.
And just one other comment, and I don't have the factual document to back this up, but the history that I've heard around that 480 development was there was always an expectation that Fairview would also be creating a ramp for the Clegg Road, and there's only one there, so that again exasperates it too. So just some history there as well, that this has been a long-standing issue that never evolved, I think, the way ODOT expected it to. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading. Resolution 2022-9, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide asphalt resurfacing and related repairs upon city streets, as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and further authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President?
Councilman Scarl.
Kelly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
Councilman Kelly.
I move to adopt 2022-9 and ask for a second.
Second.
There we go. Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-9 made by Councilman Kelly, seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Glassberg?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-9 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-10, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide crack sealing on various streets at various locations in the city, as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President?
Councilman Kelly.
I move to adopt 2022-10 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-10 made by Councilman Kelly, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-10 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-11, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide new pavement markings to various streets and locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President,
Councilman Kelly.
I move to adopt 2022-11 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-11 made by Councilman Kelly, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-11 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Legislation on second reading, Resolution 2022-13, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to request statements of qualifications, SOQs, from qualified firms to provide professional consulting services for the development of a strategic economic development plan as amended. Legislation on first reading, Ordinance 2022-14, an ordinance amending Section 351.13 and 351.14, entitled respectively, snowstorm emergencies and announcing emergency parking regulations of Chapter 351 of the Traffic Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Olmsted, entitled Parking Generally, in order to allow the mayor to declare snow emergency parking bans on city streets and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading on behalf of myself and Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Resolution 2022-15, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to make application on behalf of the City of North Olmsted for funding from the Ohio EPA, Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, DEFA, for the fiscal year 2022 for the South Interceptor EQ Basin Project, further if awarded, and to execute a contract with DEFA and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. President,
Mr. Scarl.
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review and ask for a second.
I second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for Resolution 2022-15 made by Councilman Scarl and seconded by Councilwoman Gilchrist. Roll call, please.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2022-15, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President, seeing none, I move for adoption and ask for a second.
I second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-15 made by Councilman Scarl and seconded by Councilwoman Gilchrist. Roll call, please.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Resolution 2022-15 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2022-16, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the West 231st Street Rehabilitation Project as detailed in specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving into scheduling meetings, before we move into scheduling committee meetings, I'd like to announce that we're going to hold a special council meeting for Monday, February 21st at 7 PM for the purpose of interviewing candidates for the clerk of council position. So then moving into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Councilman Limpert, would you like to remind everyone of the scheduled BZD meeting for that Tuesday?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. There will be a building zoning development meeting on the date of 2/22/22 to address CMS 21-2558, Smoke City Vape, at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Oh, well, sorry, Mr. President. I'd ask that the law director and the economic development director be available.
Great, thank you. Councilman Kelly, would you like to schedule streets and transportation?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to schedule streets and transportation at 7:25 PM on 2/22/22 for 2022-14 and 2022-16. And I'd like to have the law director for 2022-14 and the planning director and maybe the service director for 2022-16.
Thank you, Councilman. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of February 15th, 2022 is adjourned at